Om Stapakaya ca dharmasya Sarvadharmasvarupine Stapakaya ca dharmasya Sarvadharmasvarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishna Te Namah Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityoramamritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us bow down to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God incarnate. Let us pray to Him to lead us from unreal to the real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. Today's topic, meditation. The subject is very vast. Everybody loves to meditate because it's only when you try to meditate properly you experience real peace. When you try to meditate, even out of curiosity, what is the first thing that you come across? It is not that as soon as you sit in for meditation, everything would be perfect and you would experience the bliss any moment. No. Getting the bliss, getting the vision of God, seeing God, talking to Him, all these one experiences in the final stage of meditation. First of all, he has to deal with his own mind. Mind which is naturally restless. So, when you know it's a fact that mind is restless, you're not disturbed over the actual thing, but then you can take positive steps how to have sufficient control over the mind. Well, when you are busily engaged in various types of duties and activities. You are not aware of the restlessness of your mind. You feel quite all right. Everything is going on smoothly. What is there to confront with? But you will know how this problem is serious only when you try to sit quietly and meditate. When you are trying to do that, it is as if Pandora's box had all of a sudden been opened. You are surprised that there are so many things hidden in your mind, in the subconscious. They are all showing up, coming up in full colors, trying to overpower you, trying to make you get away from the seat. And people do get away. Oh Swami, I can't do meditate. My mind is terrible. I can't sit. I can't think. So, it just follows his mind. When mind becomes restless, he also becomes restless. So he behaves as the mind behaves. So when you are in such position, you are not able to meditate. So you find, though people are trying all over the world, trying to meditate, maybe 1 in 10 million may be able to get some success, some kind of progress in meditation. It's because it is rather very difficult to deal with the mind. So, if you want to have the effective meditation, if you want to have the desired result of meditation, if you are really seeking the spiritual goal out of meditation, you should certainly take all steps required. You have to take steps rigorously, and you have to see how the mind comes under your control. So that's the first point. To the extent you are able to control your mind, to that extent you are able to practice meditation in a proper way. So it is very important to know how the mind functions in order to deal with it properly. Mind is like the surface of the ocean. On the surface of the ocean, there are always waves, whether mountain high waves or ripples. There are always waves. In the same way, there are always waves on the surface of our minds. What are those waves? Be very thorough in studying the mind. Thoroughness is required. Thoroughness and determination. They are very important in your pursuit of goal. What are these waves that continuously come on the mind? They are the constant succession of thoughts arising in our consciousness. Innumerable thoughts keep on coming. Why do those thoughts come that way? They indicate our desires, conscious desires, and also unconscious. Everything is clearly pointed out. Be bold enough to accept the facts. Then you'll be bold enough to challenge them. Then you will be bold enough to practice meditation. In the past, many desires arose in your minds. You could not fulfill most of them. And so, where did they go? The unfulfilled desires. Did they disappear? No. They went underground. So, this underground technique is there since long time. All the desires which you have built up in our life pattern are all stored up in some corner of the mind. All are there. And they begin to come to the surface the moment you even make an attempt to meditate. You can't help those waves of the mind. It is virtually impossible to suppress them. They do come. You don't like them, but they come. So what's to be done? How to deal with these waves? You can do in one way. You have the power to direct them. You can direct them in a particular way, into particular channels. They are something like the waters of an approaching flood. You can't stop them. Water is rushing forth with terrible velocity. But you can channel them in a particular direction. When you do that with your minds, then it is called meditation. But what are those desires? How can we prevent new desires from arising? How can we make those desires which are already in the subconscious mind ineffective? Now you have to deal with the desires. How many things you have to deal? You have to deal with your family. You have to deal with your job. You have to deal with the society. You have to deal with your desires. All desires are not bad. There are desires which are pernicious, but there are also desires which are helpful. So the next step follows. To control your desires, you will have to first live ethical life. In that way, you can at least control the pernicious desires that make an attempt to rise in your minds. So, it is extremely necessary that you try to live ethical life. If you say, I think of ethical life in this modern society, then I should say you can't think of meditation. But still, if you say you are trying to do meditation, I would say it's only a fake meditation, not the real one. Because you won't get the real effect of meditation. So, living an ethical life is very important, especially for spiritual life. Especially when you are thinking of practicing meditation. If you want to practice meditation, you can't afford to live wild life, unregulated life, becoming victim of every impulse that comes along, good or bad. Sometimes baser impulses come. You can't afford, in the name of freedom of thought, in the name of freedom of action, in the name of freedom of emotion, to allow your impulses, to allow your emotions and thoughts to run wild without any control. By not controlling them, what are you doing? You just foment them. Fomenting. Anything is good, you think. There is freedom of thought. So, let us do whatever we like. You can do that in that fashion, but you will come to a dangerous pass. Do whatever you like, but the moment you find that it gives you trouble, try to control that. Don't go that way. Learn by your experience. There are different subtle arguments about ethics. What is right, what is good, and so on. People talk of situational ethics. Situational. Judging what should or should not be done independently, according to the situations. That means that according to the situation you can do anything you like. Whatever you find that a certain kind of behavior creates trouble for you, try to go in the opposite direction. Then you will realize that certain kinds of behavior are considered to be ethical because people have found through experience in their personal lives that these things conduce to their happiness. People who came to this world before us found out that certain modes of conduct are good, helpful, others are bad or unhelpful. In this way, traditions were laid. And there are some standard attitudes and modes of conduct which are universally accepted as ethical virtues. But when you find it difficult to put them into practice, you want to intellectualize them away. Of course, you can do that way, but you won't get peace of mind in that fashion. You will not be able to control your mind or meditate or develop your spiritual life. That's the difficulty. The choice is up to you now. How can one control inimical thoughts then and desires when they come into the mind? Serious problems. One general rule is, when undesirable thoughts and feelings come, don't just go along those lines of thinking, but think of the opposite. That's the one general principle which is applicable in all circumstances. To take an example, when you have the impulse to be angry, it is not simply accepting the fact, by temperament I am like this, so you must put up with my anger. Don't talk in that fashion. Try to think of love. L-O-V-E. When you feel hatred for someone, try to think in terms of sympathy. Sympathy. Remember that even in that person is the divine as much as it is within you. And remember that the hatred and anger that you see in others are simply the outer garments of the divine reality which is within everyone. So, try to project sympathy, to project love. Positively you must do that, positively. Day by day, when you are practicing spirituality, day by day, you must feel less and less hatred towards others, less and less angry. That's the indication of your practicing spirituality in a positive way. Patanjali Maharshi in his Yoga Sutras, Sadhana Pada section, verse number 33, he very clearly states, Vitarka bhadane pratipaksha bhavanam. Vitarka bhavane pratipaksha bhavanam. When disturbed by negative thoughts, opposite ones should be thought of. That is, positive thoughts must be thought of. This is pratipaksha bhavana. In Dhammapada, Lord Buddha teaches. He says, how to conquer hatred? Can you conquer hatred by hatred? No. By love. Conquer niggardliness by generosity. Conquer dishonesty by your overflowing honesty. Conquer falsehood by your truthfulness. You have to practice all these values. then you feel how you feel wonderful in meditation. Without practicing these values, if you sit for meditation, vibrations of anger, vibrations of hatred, vibrations of jealousy, these come and keep on pricking you, your whole constitution. You become terribly miserable. So, these values must be practiced. They are extremely helpful. In all religions, more or less, these teachings are taught. Lord Christ also puts it very poetically. Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. What a fine teaching. All the spiritual masters emphasize this fact. When you can't do anything outwardly for those who are against you, what else need be done? Just pray for them. Pray. This is so practical, so real. These are the basic ethical principles of all religions. Muhammad also has said, be free from malice, from morn till night, from night till morning. One can base one's whole spiritual life on the practice of this ethical virtue. In Buddhism, it says, send thoughts of goodwill to the east, to the west, to the north, and to the south. Send thoughts of goodwill everywhere. Practice it for a period. You will get great peace. If you can do it regularly for 1 year, your life will take a different turn. Of course, you must try to live these thoughts throughout the day. It won't do to meditate on this idea and then forget all about it and behave in just the opposite way. You will find it difficult to put this into practice. It's easier to think about it for the time being, and even then other thoughts will come. But in spite of that, if you persist in the course of 1 year, perhaps much earlier, your outlook will be different and you will get tangible results. When you are trying positively, attentively, you do get tangible results. How do you come to know about it? You will be more tolerant of others. You will have greater sympathy. You will have placidity of mind. You will get energy by which you will be able to control your mind. Then you get the requisite strength for meditation. The next point, you should try to focus. Is that By practicing meditation, by practicing Vedanta in daily life, you become cheerful. That's the indication. Blessed are the cheerful. Swami Vivekananda taught this in one of his teachings. Surely Lord Christ meant the same thing when he taught, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. The first indication that you are progressing in your spiritual life will be cheerfulness. Spontaneous, unalloyed cheerfulness, which is born of purity of heart. Next question is, the purpose of meditation must be properly fixed. It must be clear. Some want to meditate to get control of their minds, and at the same time they want to enjoy the things of the world. They want to develop the power of concentration and then utilize that for the fulfillment of their worldly ambitions. That is, you are using the effect of meditation to fulfill your most attracting, tempting desires. So you are using meditation not to liberate yourself from the world, but to bind yourself more to the world. You can't just sit for meditation and think your kundalini is rising. You must cultivate ethical virtues, very important. Are you doing that? You must live a life of sensible moderation. Do what you know to be right. Learn from your experience. If a certain type of conduct gives you trouble, don't do it again. In this way, your life will become regulated. It's extremely important to live an ethical life. Why we are stressing so much about ethical life? It's because by living ethically, unselfishness will grow in you to a great extent. Your mind will come under your control. This is called purification of the heart. Sri Ramakrishna said, if one becomes unselfish, he is fit to realize God. He is fit to realize God. That means he is qualified to get the best result of meditation. He is qualified to get the bliss of God. Swami Vivekananda went further. He said, unselfishness is God. Unselfishness is God. If you become selfless, you become God Himself. That's the point. You see all the holy people, incarnations, saints, sages, how they are unselfish. 100% unselfish. So you simply love to see them, you love to be associated with them, you love to follow their teachings, follow their example. You are simply attracted towards them. It's because of their unselfishness, and you exclaim in great wonder, oh, you are veritably God Himself. I have not seen God. People say God is in the heavens. In which direction, I don't know. But I am able to see you, who is God Himself. That spontaneous rising up comes when you become totally selfless. So again, you have to practice. You have to practice to become selfless. In that process, you are trying to become God Himself. Each day, miss no opportunity to serve. When you are serving, think in terms of not I but thou. Some persons are born with sympathy for others. They spontaneously think in terms of others. When you develop a certain degree of unselfishness, the question will come to your mind, what is the purpose of life? Then spiritual interest will arise. When you practice unselfishness, you become pure. When you become pure, you begin to seriously think about the goal of your life, and you are deeply interested in the spiritual life. That's the starting point for meditation. Without spiritual interest, you can't meditate. With only a feeble interest, you can't do anything. Finding your life empty, you seek something in a casual way. You think that by meditating you will find life meaningful. You will find that, but you must follow a definite process of meditation. You can't do it haphazardly. So, when you develop real interest in spiritual life, then the next point is a spiritual teacher is necessary as a safe guide. You must find a qualified person who teaches out of compassion, out of a desire to help others. When you get such a spiritual teacher, then you know that you are comparatively safe. The teacher knows the difficulties on the way. He knows what happens in spiritual life, the problems and the advantages. It is therefore very important to have a spiritual teacher. You feel inspired to spiritual practice under the guidance of the spiritual teacher. What is the purpose of your meditation? What do you want to meditate upon? You must have a spiritual purpose. Otherwise there will be a conflict. And your real interest is in something else. If your real interest is in something else, but you want to meditate for 8 hours a day, that's a dangerous thing. Your real interest is in what direction, that you have to figure it out properly. So, in the beginning, meditate for 5 minutes. If you do it properly, spiritual interest must be aroused. The field must be plowed. The soil must be made ready. Otherwise, real results will not come. Your mind will grow all sorts of weeds and they will be dangerous for your life. Meditation means concentration. I already told you in the beginning of my talk, this meditation is a very vast subject. We can deal with this subject in so many ways, in so many methods. Meditation means concentration. Without concentration, there is no meditation. What is the law of concentration? It is very simple. The law of concentration is interest. When you become very much engrossed in reading, for example, you forget your dinner, you don't even notice other persons coming into your room. What's the reason? Your interest is there. You're deeply interested in reading the book, and so your mind was absorbed. In the same way, interest must be aroused before one can meditate. For that, all these preparations, living a regulated life, practicing ethical disciplines, performing selfless service, all these are necessary. When one has spiritual interest, of whatever type that may be, then the question arises, what should be one's object of meditation? Here also, people get into a state of confusion. There are so many forms of gods and goddesses. God is described as having number of forms, number of names and forms. Again, God is described as formless. The object of meditation can be God with form or God without form. Some persons who are conscious of their intellect, of their rationality, probably they prefer, we believe in God without form. That's all right. But if you are to worship without form, you must have tremendous willpower. You must be able to do what you are asked to do, especially with regard to ethical virtues. If you study the life of Buddha, you find Lord Buddha did not speak of God, but he had tremendous willpower with which to gain self-mastery. Not many persons have that tremendous willpower. Only those persons who have developed their willpower to a high degree, can worship God without form. In such worship, there is absolutely no human touch, no emotional support. You simply find out intellectually what is right and try to put that into practice without any help. But in times of trouble, helps are necessary. Even Swami Vivekananda, who was such a strong person, he said in hours of trial and tribulation, Swami Vivekananda said, I want a visible form, a flesh and blood reality. A visible form, a flesh and blood reality. Who can help me? That is necessary when the mind begins to give trouble. And when Swami Vivekananda was passing through hardships in life, tremendous crisis, how could he get over them? By coming to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna's help removed all the tensions, worries. It's very helpful. We have seen in the life of Swami Brahmanand, one of the great disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. He was sitting in meditation. He loved to sit in meditation. He was adept in meditation. One day he was sitting in meditation, but he could not continue. He was not able to sit at all. He was feeling some difficulty in the mind. Sri Ramakrishna noticed it. There is love of the teacher to the disciple. He just came there, touched him, opened his mouth, and wrote something on his tongue, some mystical formula. Immediately the difficulty was taken out. He was cheerful and he could continue meditation without any problem thereafter. So, Guru is very important. Guru's grace is very important. Guru's help is immensely beneficial. So, whether you are following the worship of formless God or God with form, you will have to have a spiritual teacher who is well stabilized in spiritual life. And people love to worship God with forms and qualities. That is a personal God. What is this personal God? The personal God is a human reading of the impersonal God. Philosophically, God is oneness, ultimate reality. But when you as a human being try to conceive of that reality with your human mind and human emotions, your idea will be of a human God. You love to see God in a humanistic way. That's why we see how incarnations are very helpful in following the practice of the worship of personal God. So we think of God as the creator, and as soon as you say God is creator, other ideas come in. God is father, God is mother, friend or companion. There are various forms of God. These forms symbolize various ideas. For example, Lord Shiva is a symbol of renunciation. If you have an idea of the form of Shiva, you meditate on that. Many people meditate on Buddha. The Buddha form gives so much peace. In the same way, we can worship Rama, Krishna, Christ, Sri Ramakrishna, the incarnations of the divine power. We can worship any of these divine forms. Taking the form of a great soul as a symbol, you can use that as a help to meditation. When you think of Buddha, you think not only of his form, you contemplate his life and teachings. In this way, emotion comes, and emotion helps you to develop interest in him. When interest has been aroused, it becomes easy to meditate. You can meditate on the life incidents of great souls. For example, the followers of Lord Krishna meditate on the life incidents of Lord Krishna. It's a great help, a very great and tangible help. When you meditate on the life incidents of great souls, you come into their presence, as it were, emotionally and with concentration. Or with interest, let us say, rather than concentration. Concentration comes only after interest has grown. Interest is very important before concentration. Then you feel their living presence. It is as good as living in their time. You know, Master Mahasaya, who is called as M, the author of Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he followed this method of spiritual practice. When he went to Dakshineshwar to see Sri Ramakrishna, he would write down his experiences in short notes. Because he was a professor, he couldn't usually go to Sri Ramakrishna except on weekends. He would read over his notes to stimulate his memory, and so he would meditate on those ideas. This practice had become such a habit with him that even after Sri Ramakrishna passed away, Yam lived and moved and had his being in that presence. Ask him any question, and his mind would go to Dakshineshwar. The devotees who saw M many years after Sri Ramakrishna passed away, they could see just from the expression of his eyes that his mind was in the constant presence of Sri Ramakrishna. Once M went to Dakshineshwar, he began to embrace the big trees there. He said, these trees saw Sri Ramakrishna for 30 years. M was not sentimental by nature, but in his imagination, those trees were so much associated with the presence of Sri Ramakrishna that he began to embrace them. Think of the intensity of his devotion. For him, meditation was easy. It was a constant companion. But his spiritual unfoldment came by contemplating incidents in the life of a great soul, Sri Ramakrishna. So just by dwelling on the life incidents of the great masters, you will have tremendous interest in spiritual practice and your meditation becomes successful. Another method is to meditate on the teachings of great souls. If you read and meditate on those ideas from day to day, those ideas will sink into your mind. They will create a change in your outlook. What you eat, you become. The food you give to your mind will take possession of your mind. Afterwards, these thoughts will be put into action. From your thoughts, actions will come spontaneously. So, meditating on the teachings of men of God is very helpful. You contemplate certain ideas, you think on those ideas, you begin to visualize them, then afterwards you will find new meaning in the teachings. When you read them for the first time, you find one meaning. But as you meditate on them day to day and try to put them into practice, you will find deeper and deeper meaning. That's extremely important. 5 minutes of meditation a day seems like nothing, but when you try to put those ideas into practice, those 5 minutes will be of untold help to you. There is similar method. Take a text from a spiritual book which appeals to you. Meditate on those ideas and try to put them into practice. As you do this from day to day, you will find that text just like a mathematics formula. The formula itself is just a little thing, but it is a clue by which one can do big things. With that formula, mathematical formula, an engineer can build big bridges. Through spiritual practice, you will find how helpful the scriptures are. Another form of meditation is to try to think that God is all-pervading, that God dwells in the heart of everyone. What happens when one meditates? Mind becomes stable, calm. You may not at once be in samadhi after struggling for 1 hour, but if you practice for some time, surely you will get 1 or 2 minutes of calmness, though not samadhi. This calmness people do experience. Oh, today I had a good meditation, I was so peaceful. For a few moments, people express like that. If your mind is calm for 1 or 2 minutes, that's a great thing. Instead of the waves of thought constantly agitating your mind, The mind has become calm. At least for the time being, there is a lull. That indicates that you are progressing. That's a great thing. And if you continue, you will progress more and more. So, to conclude, first you develop interest in spiritual life by cultivating ethical virtues and trying to put them into practice. Your mind becomes placid, you become sympathetic, you don't get disturbed so easily. Afterwards, when interest has developed, there will come energy for meditation. You will develop the capacity to meditate. And when you have developed the capacity to meditate, you will have more and more concentration. And when concentration is complete, you will get what is called the transcendental experience. It will come only then. That is the final result. By getting that final result, you are experiencing immense peace and immense joy. Thank you. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunakto Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. May the Divine Spirit protect us, guide us, give us strength and right understanding. May we not hate one another. May love and harmony be with us all. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. May the Divine Lord protect us. May He nourish us. May we work in harmony with great vigor. May our study be illuminating and fruitful. May we not hate each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.